It is easy to think that it's skill and athleticism that makes athletes successful, but in reality it's much more. Often it is mind over matter, and psychology is seen as an important reason for talent and winning. Jones et al. In 2002 defined mental toughness as the natural or developed psychological edge that enables you to generally cope better than your opponents with the many demands that sport places on a performer. Specifically, being more consistent and better than your opponent in remaining determined, focused, confident, and in control under pressure. This trait is argued again by Jones in 2002, is which people who become champions aren't necessarily more gifted than others. They're just masters at managing pressure, tackling goals, driving themselves to stay ahead of the competition. In many environments, the difference between success and failure is often at the finest of margins. The boat race between Oxford and Cambridge University is one of the most prestigious events in the sporting calendar. For the athletes, it's 20 minutes of pure pain and exhaustion, but also pressure. And how they cope with that means the difference between glory and disappointment. The championship playoff final is the biggest financial gain in the whole of football. And for that 90 minutes, it's all or nothing. They are two different situations, but for both, it's the smallest factors which make success or failure. Drive theories state that performance depends on the level of arousal, and specifically that an optimal level of arousal benefits performance. By understanding what makes athletes cope or panic at crucial moments is an ever-growing observation in sport and, in fact, everyday life. Even from when in the womb, your environment dictates certain things of what you can and cannot do. All these factors and possible barriers shape who you are and comes under the phenomenon of behavioural perspective, which is that the personality is the result of an individual's interactions with their environment. Blair in 2002 understood that behavioural regulation is the ability to monitor attention and inhibit behaviour in favour of goal achievement. This conceptualization of behavioural regulation is closely related to effortful control, which is defined as the efficiency of executive attention, including the ability to inhibit a determinate response, or to activate a subdominant response to plan and detect errors, according to Rob Hartz and Bates in 2006. With behaviorism, there are two ways which can shape the way that we think: classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Classical conditioning is linked to Pablo's dog. Whenever the dog heard the bell ring, it knew it meant food was coming. The two unrelated stimuli through behavioural training is something we as humans do. In sport, if you win, it means money and glory, and so we grow to believe in these stimuli. Operant conditioning is more likely to predict how someone will behave because it uses rewards and punishments to dictate behaviour. B.F. Skinner based his work on Thorndike in 1905 to propose the theory, law of effect. He believed you could change a person's behaviour through a series of rewards and punishments. Many will seek behaviours knowing it will bring them pleasure, even if they are not inclined to act in that way in the first place. He later developed 4 ways to encourage or discourage. Number 1. Positive reinforcement. Add something to increase a behaviour, for example, paying someone for a good job. Number 2. Negative reinforcement. The removal of something to increase a behaviour. For example, being told to clean your room constantly will stop after the room has been cleaned. Both of these reinforcements increase behaviour, but we either add a stimulus or remove a stimulus. To stop a behaviour, we use punishment. Number 3. Positive punishment. Add something to decrease a behaviour. For example, a speeding ticket for being over the limit. And number 4. Negative punishment. The removal of something to decrease a behaviour. For example, if caught speeding many times, it will often lead to an arrest and the removal of your licence, according to Catania and Harnad in 1998. It is recognised that psychological factors often distinguish those successful at the highest standard from their less successful counterparts, according to Morgan in 1980. Identification of the psychological characteristics that distinguish performers from their peers has been a goal of coaches in sporting domains for a period of time, according to Morris in 2000. Shaw et al. In 1977 says the main approach adopted in investigating the link between psychological factors and performance has been to examine the psychological characteristics of elite and non-elite performers, or the psychological qualities exhibited by successful athletes compared to those who are unsuccessful. An assumption underlying this approach is that adolescents who possess characteristics that are identified as important for success in adult sport will retain those attributes to become successful elite athletes. Implicit to this assumption is that the characteristics that are important for success in adult performance can be used to identify adolescents for early selection, More recently, researchers in other domains aim to create selection and developmental programs for those who display the characteristics associated with success at adolescence, assuming that they will be successful adult athletes, according to Morris in 2000. In many sporting and performance-related domains, achieving excellence and elite status is the ultimate goal, according to Newton and Holmes in 2017. They later go on to say that when psychological traits such as commitment, motivation, self-belief, and competitiveness are developed systematically along with cognitive skills and behaviours, such as goal settings, performance planning, and evaluation, it has been proposed that they may compensate for their physical or technical limitations and may underpin an athlete's ability to translate potential into elite performance and success. To reiterate, the holistic ecological approach to talent development highlights the pivotal role of the overall environment as it affects an athlete in their athletic ability. The development in elite sport in the psychological mindset becomes an important factor to optimise performance, both individually and as a team.